Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as a comeback coach. Guys, today is going to be amazing. We're still celebrating 1 million downloads, 5 million social media impressions, all from a guy with a ninth grade education that's 80% blind. Not too damn bad. And it's all because of you, VM Nation. Thank you for showing up in force every day. Guys, if you're watching this episode, you're going to want to watch till the end. Deven is actually going to give you some 3 steps to help improve your visibility as a CEO, entrepreneur, and a podcaster. And he has over, and I don't curse on the show, but holy fuck, he's got 33 million followers on TikTok. We're going to talk about that. So guys, if you want to be known, if you want to be seen, because guys, if you don't know, podcasting is the new TV. It's the new radio. And if you're not on it, you're losing. So we're going to be talking about my friend Deven. He's a veteran. He's everything. He's everything I would love to be if I was a young man again. Truly amazing. A guy I met through a mutual friend of ours, Tanner. Amazing dude. And he's also a veteran. So I want to thank him for his service. So Deven, my brother, welcome to the show.
Richard, it is really a pleasure. Now, I have to be honest with you. One of the things that when I started to get on social media, I saw that there was this really famous guy on the internet, and his name was Deven Rodriguez. And that is not me that you're talking about with 33 million followers. That I don't know if he's my cousin, my brother. I wish I could take credit for those 33 million, but I can't, Richard.
So my brother, before we even hop on and talk about what we're going to talk about, what is your definition of resiliency? Because, we're both Army guys, and we have our own definitions of resiliency, especially after being in the military, raising our hands, going to boot, and all that stuff. So what is your definition of resiliency?
I think for me, Richard, resiliency is being willing and able to continue to go without knowing for certain the end result. That's really what I think resiliency is, because I think if you knew what the end result was, then what's the point of being resilient? Then it would just be easy. So for me, it's when you know that you want to overcome something, or there's a challenge you're facing, or there's something that you want, but there's some uncertainty in the process. And I think resiliency is what happens when you show up every day and continue to move forward despite not knowing for certain the end result.
I love it. So now if somebody would see you now, because I've been stalking you on every social media platform, I love what you're doing. But if they would see you in your uniform right now, you're smiling, you got the big grin, you're hanging out with superstars and celebrities, but it's not always been unicorns, rainbows. So talk to us a little bit about where you come from, where did you grow up, and how did you become the force that you are today?
Yeah, Rich, I grew up in New York City, Queens, New York. We were talking before the show, and Richard told me he's from New Jersey. I said, guys, I'm sorry, Rich, but somebody has to live in Jersey. Not everybody could be from New York. I got to bust your chops, Rich. But
but all the good rappers, they all come from New York.
Yeah, this is true. And the good pizza too. Okay. I mean, give us some credit here. So grew up in Queens, New York, Rich. And for about 6 years of my life, from the time I was in 2nd grade to the time I was in 8th grade, that's really where my definition of resilience came from. Because every day for 6 years, I was faced with bullying. And there might be some people listening to this right now who went through some times in their life where you just didn't enjoy waking up every day. Whether it be because of the job you were in, whether it because of the spouse you were with, or maybe you were being bullied just like I was. And man, I just remember one day, Rich, as I was in 5th grade, I went to the park, and I used to be terrified to go to the park because every day that I did, it was inevitable that I would be beaten up. So I remember one day I was in the park and I was about to leave the park, and I just took a video on my camera the other day because I've had a record-breaking month in my business. And I stood just last week on the very spot on that day in 5th grade where I was in the fetal position, just being beaten up by these 5 bullies. And I went home on that day, and I remember walking up the stairs, and my parents came out because they heard me coming, and they said, Deven, what happened? And I told them, Mom, Dad, I got beaten up. And they said, son, we want to transfer you to another school. We don't want you to be around this anymore. We need to move you out of the situation. You know, are you willing to transfer to go to another school? And this was where my resilience foundation, what I'll call it, this is where it was formed. And I stood there and I just paused. And I don't know if anybody's ever had the experience that's listening, but you said something, but you don't know why you said it. You don't know why you did it. And all I did was look at my parents and I said, Mom, Dad, I'm not going anywhere. And huh? And for the next 3 years, I continued to be bullied. But here's where my definition of resilience came from, like you asked, Richard. I said it is the ability to continue to go forward despite not knowing the end result. See, I knew in that moment that if I would have given in to my parents and said, yeah, transfer me, I would have allowed the bullies to determine my future for me. But in that moment, without me even realizing it as a child, what I told myself in that moment was, I am the one that will determine my future for me. Over the next 3 years, it was really hard, but here's where it all comes together. In the 8th grade year, I was nominated school president by the very same kids that beat me up that day. And the reason why I celebrate something so small like being nominated president is because to me, that was resilience. The ability to show up day after day, not knowing if it was ever going to get better. But here's what I realized about resiliency is that when you are willing and able to be resilient every single day, then there's going to come a day where you look back and you say it was all worth it. And for me, that was that day. And it implanted in my mind that whatever I go through, as long as I just outlast what I'm going through, it's inevitable that I win. It's just like one of my mentors, Tom Bilyeu. He says, success is a game of attrition. You just have to be willing to outlast everybody else. So that's when I developed that mentality. And throughout the years, it's been really tough at certain points. I'll fast forward to when I graduated college. There was a lot that happened between 8th grade and college, but we don't have that much.
What college did you go to?
I went to St. John's University in Queens, New York. Yeah, I stayed in. Yep, yeah, I stayed in New York. I stayed in New York all the way through college, and then I commissioned into the Army as an officer in 2020. I went to Army Ranger School, which as an officer in the Army, especially in the infantry, you're expected to go to Ranger School and you're expected to pass Ranger School. Well, Rich, I failed Ranger School on day 1. But I'm not sure. Maybe there's someone listening that has gone through a failure or a setback, but they felt like God was speaking to them. And what God was saying to them was, this happened for a reason. And I didn't know what that reason was. But weirdly enough, I didn't feel devastated that I failed. I didn't feel like my world was ending. I felt like something greater was coming. Sure enough, that greater was about 2 weeks later. I was on an app called Clubhouse, which was a new audio app that was out at the time. My childhood hero, what enabled me to get over my bullying was listening to motivational tapes and videos. And one of those people for me was Les Brown. He was my childhood hero. So I go on Clubhouse for the very first time, and guess who I see on Clubhouse hosting a room? I see Les Brown. That's like seeing a superhero. Like, oh my God, this is Les Brown. Oh my God. Oh my God. I started fangirling totally. So I click on the room and I go start listening to Les Brown. And my dream at the time was I wanted to be a big motivational speaker. And then he started to talk, and he's telling about like his storytelling secrets and all this stuff. And then finally he says, well, I'm also opening up a community that if anybody wants to learn how to share their message, tell their story, I'm going to train in a small group setting. And it's just going to cost $297 a month. Now, mind you, I'm 22 years old at the time. I just graduated college. I just bought a house. I just bought a car. And I heard $297. And I said, oh, $297. I had never invested money in coaching, nothing. I was like, no, Les, I really want to do it, but it's too expensive. So I called up my dad because he's the guy that I go to kind of consult decisions. And I said, Dad, you know Les Brown? He said, of course I know Les Brown. I said, well, he has this coaching program he's offering, and I really want to do it. But Dad, there's a problem. He said, what's the problem, son? I said, it's $297 a month. And he says, you want me to lend you the money? I said, no, Dad, I don't. And he turned to me, and this is one of those defining moments of resiliency. He said, Deven, figure it out. And I took out my credit card and I held it out in front of me like this. And I just stared at it. And I asked myself this question. I said, are my goals and my dreams worth it? And I said, yeah, they are. And I put that $297 a month on a credit card that had 34% interest that I got when I was 17 years old. Do not ask me why I got that credit card, Richard. Do not ask me. I do not know. But I say all of that to say this. That was the turning point of my life, because in 2 weeks' time, I got on a call, and it was supposed to be an onboarding session with somebody on Les Brown's team. I got on the call, and it was an onboarding session with Les Brown himself. And in that moment, he got on the call and he said, son, what do you want to do with your voice? And I said, sir, I want to be the greatest speaker in the world. That was my dream at the time. And he said, well, son, let's get to work. And that transformed into a one-on-one, deeply personal relationship where over the course of the next 2 years, he and I worked hand in hand together to really craft my ability to deliver a message. Now, I'll put the bow on it all. This is how I got to where I am. I started to work with Les, and about 3 months in, I was sharing my story, my message on Clubhouse and other social media platforms. One day, a woman named Heidi sends me a message on Clubhouse. She said, Deven, you ever thought about teaching anybody this? I said, teaching people what? She said, teaching people how to share their story. I said, get out of here, Heidi. I don't teach people how to do that. So I just left the DM alone, and I went and I checked my bank account. And I was investing in so much coaching and doing all these different things. And I saw that I had negative $7 in my bank account. I was like, whew. So I went back to Heidi and I said, Heidi, were you serious about that? And she said, yeah, I think you could really help a lot of people make a lot of money. So I was like, all right, cool. So I started to host rooms on Clubhouse talking about storytelling. And sure enough, within a month, I had 4 people sign up at $119 for a group coaching program that I put together. And for the next year, all that I did was teach people how to share their message and communicate their story. But the biggest problem, Richard, was that I taught all of these people how to share their story. And people would graduate from my program and they would know how to share their story. And I thought that they were going to go on and conquer the world. But the one missing piece was that when I taught them how to share their story, the thing that I did not do was give them a platform to be able to share that story. That is where podcasting comes into play. At the time that I realized this, Rich, I was a podcaster for 5 years at the time. And how this was inspired with me inside of me was listening to James Clear. I was listening to him.
Habits, baby. Atomic Habits.
What a great book. I was driving my car and I was listening to a podcast episode that he was on. And the host said something that this changed my life. The host asked him a question. They said, James, what do you say no to? And James said, one of the things that I say no to is public speaking engagements. He said, the whole reason why I charge $200,000 an hour is deliberately so people will say no. And the host said, you say no to 200 grand an hour? And he said, yes. He said, you want to know why? Of course, the host said yes. And he said, because when I speak on a stage, when I do the work is done. In other words, when I speak, only the people in that room will be impacted. When I speak, only the people in that room could buy my books. So when I do the work one time, it's dead. There's no leverage. He said, but he turned to the podcast host and he said, do you see what we're doing right now on this podcast? They said, yeah. He said, what we're doing right now answers this question. What is the work that when I do it just one time will continue to work for me forever? Because what he said was, whoever's listening to this in 1 year can buy my book. 10 years from now, someone can listen to this and be impacted. So when we think of podcast guesting and being a guest on other people's show, it's the most high leverage activity that we could ever participate in. And that is how I got to where I am, Richard. And that's how I'm here on this call with you, man.
All right, we got to go, guys. It's been a great show. Have a nice day. And I love it. And as you see, I'm writing stuff down because whatever you say is really, truly important to me. And I, too, have a traumatic brain injury. So if I don't write stuff down, I'm going to forget. But, guys, if you don't know Mr. Les Brown, including you, I have 4 friends that are personal friends with him. Amazing guy. His story is amazing. And you can't help but be inspired by the gentleman. So, guys, if you don't know Les Brown, stop this recording, go check out Les Brown, and come right back. And something you don't know, and I know you don't know this, I was in those clubhouse rooms when you were giving those clubhouse. I was in your rooms. And I knew I wanted to get with you, and it's taken this long because I wanted to hit a certain number before I would even invite you to come on. But I was in the audience, and I never raised my hand in those clubhouse rooms. And I learned a lot. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be having the show that I have right now. So I wanted to surprise you with that and say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Man, thank you, Rich. Man, that makes me feel really good. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for mentioning that, man.
All right, so let's talk about and because I got so many things I really want to talk to you about. One thing I lost 80% of my vision, but my hearing's got a lot better. Not according to my wife, but my hearing's got a lot better. But you've mentioned God at least 3 times. So
Yeah.
I also think that you're a man of faith. And I just want to point that out. And I just want to say thank you for being a brother, first of all.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing, because we're going to be together in eternity. But now I also have a lot of people, when I said I'm going to have you on and we're going to be talking about podcasting, I had a lot of people say, what is a podcast? Because even a lot of people, because I'm 54, I go out and I talk and I speak a lot. And a lot of people, they don't even know what a podcast even is. So talk to us. Tell somebody what a podcast even is.
Yeah. Well, here's what when I think about a podcast, this is what I think of. It's a megaphone in which you share your message with the world. Because here's the reality of the situation, Rich. This is why podcasts are so powerful. I'm coming on your show and you have 1 million downloads. Now, I don't know how many downloads you have a month, but let's say 200,000. So if I'm able to come on your show and share my message with 200,000 people just this month, that's impactful. But here's what's most powerful about being a guest on other people's podcasts, or even having your own podcast, is that now there's 200,000 people listening to me in 1 month. But now let's just say just 10% of that 200,000 listen to me over the next 12 months. So now that's 200,000 plus 20,000 extra people that listen to me per month. So what I'm saying is that I'm doing the work with you, Richard, and I'm spreading my message and spending an hour with you. But now that work continues to work for me for forever. So if somebody is looking to amplify their message and they want to do it in a way that allows them to have maximum reach, but also have maximum influence and build authority, having a podcast or being a guest on other people's podcasts is absolutely a no-brainer. So imagine like you have this megaphone and you speak into it and you blow your and you're able to just share your message, but it doesn't just go out to your yard or to your friend or to your neighbor. You can reach people in 45 countries by simply speaking into this little microphone. So for anybody that's really looking to build authority and really get out there into this world, podcasting is a no-brainer. And how do I know that? Because my doggy who's in the background, even he agrees with what I'm saying, Richard, okay? Even he agrees with what I'm saying. But I say all of that to say this. The times are shifting. It's no longer about just Facebook advertising and posting a reel on social media. Whoever can make the audience feel most understood, whoever can develop the deepest relationship with the audience is the person who will have the most influence. And when we think about where can we find people and develop a relationship with them, it's not with a 30-second reel. It's not with a 3-minute ad. It's when you spend 30 minutes listening to somebody's story through a podcast. So for anybody that's really looking to get their message out into the world, this is the megaphone that allows you to communicate that message all over the world with simply just a microphone.
And I love it. And because I teach people how to podcast. I have my own course coming out, my own books coming out. And somebody will ask me, well, why should I be on a podcast, or why should I sponsor one of your shows? And I tell them, listen, if you put an advertisement on, say, ESPN, you might see it once or twice, whatever you pay for. If you put a podcast episode out, or if you sponsor a podcast, especially if you're putting it out on YouTube, if you're putting it out on Pinterest, it lives in perpetuity, which means 10 years from now, you might be getting income residuals from a podcast you spent 1 hour doing 10 years ago. You're still making money from it because it doesn't go away. Where if you do a Facebook ad, once your ad spend is done, it's done.
You're done. Yep.
Or even a Facebook Live, because they really once the Facebook Live is done, it's done. But once you do a podcast and it goes out on wherever you put it out, and especially YouTube. And most of the time, if you put an interview out on YouTube, it's only going to get more popular over time.
Oh, yeah.
And more listens. So talk of that, because a lot of people don't think long term. They just think, oh, it's an hour of my time. Yeah, but that's something people are going to find 10, 15 years from now.
And Richard, that's a problem, right? That's a problem, because I think that speaks to what we see in the world a lot of the time. The reality of the situation is, if you study the most wealthy people, they understand one thing, and that's leverage. Simply one word, leverage. How can I get more out of the effort that I put in? What most people do, Richard, is they spend 3 hours per post on Instagram, and they're praying to the gods that the algorithm will show their stuff to the right people. But in reality, they're not Kim Kardashian. So when you post, the only people that are going to be watching it or seeing it is going to be your dog, your grandma, and your sister. Those people are not going to buy from you. Those people are not going to be inspired by you. And in reality, even if you do have a post go viral, it's going to last for a week and then you're done. But when you're talking about podcasting, exactly like you're saying, let me give you an example. I'll use your podcast, like I was saying, or I'll use another podcast. Like, let's take Entrepreneurs on Fire, another very popular podcast.
John Lee, I've had John on the show.
JLD is a beast. He got about 1.5 million listeners a month. So if you're able to get on his show, you get 1.5 million listeners listening to you that month. But now think about it over the course of the next 2 years. What could that multiply into, especially if you're able to tell really good stories, be captivating, and not just sound like this the entire time, which is what most people do when they go on podcasts. Because this is what most people think, Rich. They think, I'm just going to go on a podcast and I got this. But that would be like saying, I'm just going to go to the gym, but I have no idea how to lift the weights. So it's not just what you say, it's how you say what you say. So content is not king. Content is queen, and delivery is king. Your ability to deliver a message and keep people activated and captivated and to transform them both individually and collectively is what will make the difference when you're on a podcast, or even if you have your own podcast. Nobody wants to listen to the monotone person, the person that doesn't know how to tell their story or just tells the same one over and over again. There's an art and a science to this. And that's really what I admire about you and what you're doing, is you're teaching people that.
Well, and now, just let everybody know that John Lee Dumas is my mentor. He's the one that's taught me. But also, when I had him on my show, a lot of people, when they have him on, because when I knew I was going to have you on, I watched almost every interview you've ever done. And I've watched, even when John Lee Dumas, I watched every interview that was ever done with him. And hardly anybody ever asked him, what was it like being an armor commander in Iraq and losing a tank crew and you coming home and being suicidal? Nobody ever asked him that question. They want to know how you getting 1.5 million downloads a month.
Yep.
So when I have somebody come on my show, I'm a little bit different. Like when I had Steve Sims come on my show, he says, you're going to talk to me about Elton John. I said, not really. I really don't care about you and Elton John. I care more about what it was like when you were a 16-year-old dating your wife now, who's your beautiful bride right now, and you were a bricklayer at 16 and you were poor. What was that like? He's like, you know what, Richard? He said, you fucker. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question. And he said he shared that episode because nobody ever asked him that question. And I think that's why, me and you, we do stuff differently. We don't want to be like everybody else. And everybody else asks the same questions. They ask the same things over and over again. And nobody gets emotionally involved. So nobody's going to watch or share. So talk about that, getting people emotionally involved, especially as a guest, because most people like Steve Sims, he does 7 or 8 interviews a week. He's not going to share your episode if it's just the same crap question over and over again. So talk about that.
Absolutely. Really, being a guest on other people's podcasts, Richard, there's an art and a science to it. And the whole goal behind it, the biggest mistake people make is that they just try to go on a podcast and they try to just demonstrate their expertise. And they try to use all of these big words and they try to be perfect. And they especially try not to stumble and bumble over the words. But what they don't realize is that the entire goal of being on a podcast is to make people feel like you understand them. And the way that you get people to feel like you understand them is showing them that you understand their failures. And how do you show people that you understand their failures? Is you talk about your own. So that's the first thing, is understand that nobody cares about you. What they care about are three things, Richard. Number one, who are you? Number two, what do you have for me? And number three, why should I care? Those are the three things that my mentor shared with me when he called me up 12 hours before my TEDx talk. And he said, Deven, that talk, you cannot deliver it because it is terrible. He said, nobody gives a crap about you. Most people, when they go on a podcast, they just talk about this is how you set up the pixel of the Facebook ad and you do all of these different things. And they just try to demonstrate their expertise, but nobody cares about you. Number one, who are you? Number two, what do you have for me? And number three, why should I care? Why is it relevant to me? So I mentioned that because before you go on any podcast, you got to do your research and say, who is Richard's audience? Because every single message that you share has to be customized to that specific audience. What most people do, Richard, is they say, I'm going to develop my signature story. And then they just say the same thing over and over and over again without taking the audience into consideration. But now let me give you some ninja stuff here. And this is how you really develop a deep relationship with people. It's what I call the storytelling matrix. It's comprised of 4 parts. So whenever you're thinking about what story do I tell, I want you to take into consideration 4 things as it relates to your audience. The first of which is, what are the obstacles that my audience currently face? An obstacle could be, I have a 9-to-5 job that takes up a lot of time. An obstacle could be, I have a newborn baby. An obstacle could be, I have an unsupportive husband. Those are all examples of obstacles. Okay, cool. So obstacles, number one, what are the obstacles that my audience is currently facing in their life? Number two, what are their struggles? They struggle to stay motivated. They struggle being disciplined. They struggle eating healthy. They struggle to keep positive. They struggle to find positive mentors in their life. What are their struggles? Now, someone might be saying, but Deven, I don't know their obstacles and their struggles. I once heard a quote that really impacted me. It was by a gentleman named Rory Vaden. He said, you are perfectly positioned to help the person that you once were. So when thinking about, how do I know their obstacles? How do I know their struggles? Chances are, if you're sharing your message and you're trying to help people, you're trying to help an earlier version of yourself. So reflect back on who you used to be. What were your obstacles? What were your struggles? So that's like the top half of the matrix. Now let's talk about the bottom half, the two lower quadrants. Here's where things get really spicy. This is what I love. The third thing is, what are their thoughts? But I do it a little bit differently. What are their thoughts in specific phrases? Now, I'm going to give you a little insider secret into how I actually use this throughout this episode. So I don't know if the audience heard this, but did you guys catch when I said, and I don't know if anybody has ever said something to themselves like, damn it, I got to do this again. I don't know if I'm going to make it. What's going to happen? Now, here's the key. It's not enough to just know the thoughts that your audience are thinking. You have to be able to define them in specific phrases. So, Richard, this is what I mean. So my audience, when they go home and they just lay down on their pillow at night and they can't fall asleep, what are those thoughts that they're thinking in phrases? Here's an example. Damn it, I really got to go and wake up tomorrow to go to a job. Man, I've been posting on social media so much and it's not working, but this person who just started yesterday, why can they be successful all of a sudden? How much longer can I continue to live like this? When is this going to end? Now, here's where this comes into play. This is where it gets, if you guys understand this, it will change the game for you. Just remember this one quote. If you don't remember anything from what I say today, it's this. Your job is to verbalize what they internalize. I'm going to say that again. Your job is to verbalize what they internalize. In other words, whenever you share a story or your message, what you want to do is you want to verbalize the thoughts that they're thinking, but they would never dare share with anybody else because they're afraid of being judged, because they're afraid of what's going to happen. They're afraid of the repercussions. So inside, they're screaming with these thoughts, but they would never dare tell anyone because they're afraid of the repercussions. So if you come along and you're able to say and demonstrate through your story, and you're able to pause and say, all I could think was, how much longer is this going to last? The person that's listening is going to say, how does Deven know that? Wait, I'm not alone? And now it doesn't matter if somebody has a better product or service than you. The person is going to want to buy from you because they feel understood. So that's number 3. We verbalize what they internalize. And number 4, what are their feelings? Here's the key: in specific words. Frustrated, anxious, exhausted, overwhelmed, tired, etc. So now when I'm telling my story, I'm going to say things like this. And as I was sitting there in the park in the fetal position, all I felt was afraid and desperate and alone. Now, guess what? Those are the feelings that my audience has. So when they hear that I too felt those feelings, they're going to say, wow, that guy's a lot more like me than I thought. So that is what I call my storytelling matrix. So when you're thinking about what story to tell, first place you start is, okay, it's not about me. It's about, number 1, who are you? Number 2, what do you have for me? Number 3, why should I care? Okay, now I'm in the mindset of the audience. And now I say, okay, what are their obstacles? What are their struggles? What are their thoughts? What are their feelings? And then what is the story that I have that will reflect back to them their obstacles, their struggles, their thoughts, and their feelings? So that's really my best advice. If people just do what I just said, it will have a profound difference on their ability to captivate the audience's attention.
And that's something, and I wrote JLD down and I circled it and I crossed it because, like I said, he's my mentor, and we actually sat down and talking from me here and him in Puerto Rico, and he told me, because I'm like, all right, I need help. Who is my perfect audience? And he says, your perfect audience is the person you were 5 years ago and the person you're going to be 5 years from now. So, and I actually have a picture in my phone of some random family of a father, a wife, and 3 kids wearing a uniform, because my perfect avatar, his name is Craig. He actually, father of 3, veteran, 43 years old, brand new business owner. So every time that I have a show, that's who I'm talking to is Craig.
Right.
So I know that whoever I have on, whatever subject we're talking about, it's all going to come back to Craig. So that's what you're talking about. But first, before we even get on, because I want to get a little bit deeper, because they call me G.I. Joe Rogan, so I want to go a little bit deeper. Guys, I came out with my own coffee. As you see, I've been drinking it here. It's called Vertical Momentum Resiliency Coffee. It's twice the amount of caffeine, no crash. It's all veteran, hand roasted. And the best part of it is I make no money off of it. $0 I make. For every bag that I sell, we're going to take that money and we're going to take 12 veterans and their families. We have a place in Illinois right now. We're going to take 12 families and their veterans, take care of them physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially for 1 year at zero cost to the veteran. So, guys, if you love coffee, there's some great coffees out there. But if you like great coffee with a mission, write coffee down below, and I'm going to get that information to you. And I appreciate you. We've sold out multiple times, and one of my guests bought 500 bags just to be able to help veterans like that. So, guys, I just want to say, if you love coffee, write that down. Write coffee down below, and we'll get that information to you. So, David, let's talk about this a little bit, because I see I'm an analytical guy now. The average podcast lasts 13 episodes. If you stay in within 20 episodes, you're into like the top 10% worldwide. There's 4 million podcasts out there, but only 500,000 have released an episode in the last 90 days. And it's because a good podcast takes work. Like for me, it takes work to get guests, which I don't have to anymore because my brother's hooking me up. But to do the background work, you have to be able to do graphics. You have to learn learning your interview style. Like for me, I've taken courses by John Lee Dumas, Eric Allen, Sean Douglas, Travis Johnson. I've taken about 10 podcast courses because I want to be the best at what I do. And that's why podcasts don't last that long, because people don't realize you got to put in the reps and you got to put in the work. So talk to us about launching a successful podcast, not just a podcast.
Yeah, Richard, my specialty is in helping people get onto podcasts, but this is good because guess what? Long before I started helping people get onto podcasts, I started my own podcast back in 2018, and we're in the top 1%. Don't have as many downloads as you. One day, Richard. But I say all of that to say this. I've interviewed, you name the person, I've pretty much interviewed them on my podcast. And this is what I learned. And this is actually the secret as well to understanding podcast guesting, getting on other people's shows. So the thing that people have to realize is if you want to grow quickly, you got to have big guests on your show. That's just the name of the game. That's how it is. Unless you're Kim Kardashian, if you just start your own solo podcast, the only people that are going to be watching are your dog, your turtle, and your rabbit, right? There's not going to be anybody listening to the show. So you need to have some heavy hitters. Now, I want to talk about how do you get those heavy hitters on your show? Well, this is how you do it. You understand what people desire. So let's think about it this way. And when I started getting people on podcasts, I started not with the beginners. I started with people at the top of their industry. And this is exactly what I knew. I said, okay, what do I have? This is a question that everybody has to ask themselves. What do I have that they don't have? Or what do I have that they want more of? So when starting a podcast, remember what we were talking about earlier? That when you post a podcast episode, the person who's the guest has the opportunity to gain an audience over the course of the next 10 years. So now when we go and we pitch a podcast guest and we say, hey, I want you on my show. Here's what most people do, Rich. Hey, I just started this podcast. I'm looking for guests on the show. Would you like to be one? But does that touch the desire of the person at all? No. Instead, what you want to say is this. Hey, Rich, Deven Rodriguez, I have a podcast called the Storypreneur Podcast. We talk all about entrepreneurship and business, and I think that you would be the absolute perfect fit for my show. Now, what we do is actually really special. Not only do we give you access to our audience, but we also will help you promote your products and services on our podcast. And we are very passionate about helping our guests monetize. So I know you get pitched a lot to go on a lot of podcasts, but I would really love to help you share your message, your mission, and help you monetize just a little bit more. Let me know if you would like to be a guest on the show. Now they're like, oh, I can go and make money from being a guest on this person's show. Oh, I can actually build my audience versus what most people do. You want to be a guest on my show? Let me know. It's like, no. But when you frame it in terms of what's the benefit? How can this reach their desire? Every famous person wants more fame. Every rich person wants more money. Every poor person wants more money. So if you can, the two most powerful human drivers are status and wealth. Well, I know status is definitely number one. Wealth, it's definitely up there. So if you can frame whatever it is that you do in a way that will help show people that they will elevate their status and make more money, it's very hard for people to say no, Richard. So what we have to do as podcast hosts is frame our pitch in a way that will show the guest that you are going to have an increased status in the eyes of the audience and therefore grow your own audience. And then number two, you have the potential to make money as a result of being a guest on my podcast. So I'll give you an example of what I do. I had a podcast episode. I posted it on YouTube and it blew up. It got like 100,000 downloads with someone named Myron Golden. He is incredible. If you have not interviewed him yet, you have to interview. He is incredible. Anyways, I promoted his product. I made tens of thousands of dollars as an affiliate of his. So now guess what? When I go to people and I pitch them to be a guest on my show, here's what I say. I would love to promote your product and service. In fact, over the course of the past year, I've generated tens of thousands of dollars for people like Myron Golden. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. I can make money. But even if you haven't done that, what I recommend is saying, hey, we love to promote our guest products and services so that you can get something out of this as well. So not only will we help you build your audience, but we will help you put more money in your pocket. And when you do that, people will say yes to you. Like I've interviewed like crazy people. They say yes. And you're like, how did that happen? It's because you framed it in a way that made them want to come on rather than begging them to come on. So all of that to say, when launching your show, try to get the big dogs on. And the way that you do that is you frame it in a way that makes it advantageous to them, not just you.
Now, no, going to be totally open and honest. When I started my podcast, it was from Anchor and it was audio only. And I
started the same way.
And I had no clue what I was doing. But I did things a little bit different because I moved to New Jersey and I knew nobody except for my wife. I had 0 Facebook friends. I had 0 friends, period. So I wanted to start a podcast, but had no idea where to start because there weren't courses back, 5-6 years ago as much as they are today. So what I started doing is I started the podcast. And if I wanted to have Russell Brunson on, I actually bought all his books and I actually read them all, took pictures of his books, put a buying link, and promoted on all social media and didn't ask for a thing until all of a sudden he started seeing, hey, who's this Richard Kaufman dude? Why is he always promoting my stuff? And then I would say, hey, Russell, I see you got a new book coming out. I would love to have you come on the show to promote your new book. And all of a sudden people are like, I already seen you promoting my stuff already. You invested in me. So why wouldn't I invest some time in you? So that's how I first got started. That's how we've had Steve Sims, Sharon Lecter, all those other big hitters that have come on, David Meltzer. But for me, it's creating relationships. Like if I wasn't friends with Greg Reed, I wouldn't be able to be friends with Sharon Lecter. I wouldn't be able to interview the drummer for Def Leppard or the guy that just directed The Sound of Freedom because of the relationships I built. And I see a lot of people that have podcasts, as soon as the guest is gone and their episode is released, it's over. Where for me, we're friends. Now I want to generate generational relationships. So talk about relationships, because if I know Deven knows somebody and I see somebody that was on your Deven show and I'd be like, hey, bro, I would love to have Myron come on the show. Can you hook it up? You would, because we've built a relationship.
Absolutely.
And like, I guess it's a Navy term, but, like a rising tide, all ships lift. So talk about that as building relationships even after the episode has aired.
Richard, this is something that has changed my life, right? Because this is how I got started in my business. So as you know, Richard, I help get people on really big podcasts like your own. But I don't think I've shared with you how it started. And it all started 2 years ago when Les Brown was my mentor. Still is my mentor. He was like, the relationship he and I built, he would just call me on the phone and check on me. Hey, Deven, how you doing? He was like a grandpa to me. So I was like, man, how can I repay this dude? So here's the problem. When building relationships, especially with people that are at a higher level than you, this is what people think. They think that they have to go and ask the person, what can I do for you? In reality, all that you're doing when you do that is you're asking them to do more work, and these people are already busy. Therefore, they do not have time to do more work, so they're never going to reply. So what you need to do is you need to figure out, what do they lack that I have? So here's what I did. I went out. I said, damn it. How can I kind of like repay this dude? How can I repay Les Brown? Like, he got it all. He got the money. He got everything. What can I do for him? So this idea just popped into my head. I was like, what if I got him on Entrepreneurs on Fire? So I went on eofire.com and I was looking. I was like, where do I found the email? And I said, okay, I pretty much just said this. Hi, John. Would you like to have Les Brown on your show? Surprisingly, he personally responded to me. I was like, no, this can't be real. And he said, I would love to have Les Brown on the show. Here's the booking link. I went back to Les Brown and I said, Les, I got you on a podcast, one of the biggest of all time. He said, really? I said, yeah, here's the link. Go have fun. Book it. Here's the point. I did something for him without asking what he wanted. I did something for him without asking if I could. I did something and I just brought him the final product. Once I did that, I did the same thing for Dennis Waitley. Not sure if you know who he is. He sold the most audio tapes of all time, 100 million downloads, 100 million copies of The Psychology of Winning. Done the same thing for Brian Tracy, right? And all of these different people. And here's the thing. When you do something for somebody else, it's inevitable that it will come back to you. You just don't know where it's going to come from. So here's recently where this all came together. I was really taking this seriously in terms of helping people get booked on other people's podcasts. And I went to a gentleman named Tanner Chittister, who, by the way, talking about buying all their stuff, over the course of the past year, I've invested $30,000 in just his stuff. So I went to him and I said, Tanner, I want to get you on podcasts. And he was like, yeah, but I don't want to pay you. I was like, oh, that's no big deal. I don't want to be paid. And over the course of the next 30 days, mind you, before I started doing that, I was in a place where if I pulled out my journal right now, you would see how close I was to quitting. I was desperate. I was afraid, to be honest, because I'm getting out of the military in about 9 months. But I said, you know what? Brian Tracy once told me this. He said, Deven, just give until it hurts.
Yep.
And when it starts to hurt, I want you to give some more. So I started to say, how can I give to people? So I said, Tanner, I'm going to get you on podcasts. In 30 days, we got him on 15 of the top 100 business podcasts in the world.
Yeah, we were one of them.
Yours is one of them. Guess what happened? My business went from me in a place where I was like literally stuck, generating no money, to now going to have probably my first six-figure month. And I don't share that to say like, wow, that's so impressive. I share all of that to say because that was built off of a relationship, off of something that I did for free. Zero. But most people won't do that because why? It's hard work. Not being paid for something, waking up, sending emails, being rejected, waking up, sending emails, being told no, waking up, getting on a plane, buying your own plane ticket, spending $2,000 on this, $2,000 on that. He's not paying for me. I got to show up. But what I told myself was, this is what's required to do it. So in terms of building relationships and fostering relationships, whether it be after the podcast episode is done or just in life, number one, realize how you can connect people with one another. That is the most valuable thing that you can ever do, is be a connector of people. It doesn't matter if you're poor. It doesn't matter where you are. Simply just connect people with one another, and you will instantly become one of the most valuable people in that circle. Number two, do the work for people and present them with the finished product. It's that simple. Stop overcomplicating it. And in terms of really answer your question, which was how to build that relationship over time, even after the podcast episode is done, it's simple. Check up on them. Tell them happy birthday. How are you doing? What's going on? Nice to see you. Seems like you're doing well. It doesn't take much, guys. It's just being a human. That's why I posted the other day. I was like, the best way to get better at sales is to stop being weird. When most people go on they're selling, they're like, well, I got to do this crazy sales objection. Or they think, well, my tonality has to rise. It's like, no, just like be a human being and like check on the person. Like, hey, you seem a little scared. You okay? Like, that's way better than some crazy closing technique. So just be a human, check up on the person like they're just a friend, and you'll see how your relationship will build.
And so let's talk about that a little bit, because that's something every morning I wake up, I spend 2 hours in my business. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I see all the comments and I reply to every single comment that a person sends me, because they took the time out, even if it was their 5 seconds, to reply. So I make sure that I reply to every single comment. And now I think we have almost 10,000 followers on Facebook. And every day I go into birthdays and I make sure that I wish all because I don't have followers, I have friends. So I make sure that every day I direct message every one of them. Hey, happy birthday. Just thinking about you. Not trying to sell anything. I just want to let you know that you're loved and appreciated. And then I do the same thing on their timeline just to know, so they know that they're loved. But what Facebook says, Rich, great job. Guess what? We're going to pop them right into the top of your algorithm. So every day my algorithm is new. And not because I'm trying to do it for that reason. That's just a gift from Mr. Zuckerberg. But it's showing my people, hey, Rich is thinking about me today. He does this every year, and he makes sure that he knows that I'm worthy and that I'm grateful to be his friend. So talk about that, because a lot of people don't even really know about it or don't act upon it or just don't use it properly.
Yeah.
Properly.
Yeah, Richard.
Not like LinkedIn where people are just sending you bots and stuff to make you get sales, but just to let people know, hey, I'm thinking about you. I love your post, whatever. Direct message is the best way to go as long as you're not that spammy dude.
I mean, the reality is that's how I build my entire business, Richard, is through direct message, right? I haven't spent any money on ads. I'm going to, but I haven't yet. And the way that I've done it is just built off straight off relationships. Like, that's it. Like, the way that you have to look at this is it's not simple, but you just have to do things differently than everybody else. And the reality of the situation is everybody's going into people's DMs and being like, hey, I got this thing. You want to buy it? Hey, I got this thing. You are the best one is like when they send you something like this. Looks like you're a coach. How long have you been doing that? Like, all right, guy, I know what's coming next. You're just going to pitch me. So what I personally like to do is I just like to be a human being. Like, Rich, what I would do right now, if I wanted to get your attention, I would screenshot this and I would zoom in on your hat and I would zoom in on the logo of your hat and I would send it to you. And I'll be like, oh, hey, Rich, bro, what brand hat is that? Guess what you're going to do? You're going to reply because you're going to tell me what kind of hat that is. So what I'm saying is, like, look at ways in which you can draw people's attention, but also do it in an authentic way. Like, don't just try to get in somebody's DM because you want to make some money. Get into somebody's DM because you want to see how you can help the person. And here's the thing. What a lot of people think is, yeah, unless I sell them something, I can't help them. That's not true. I think the definition of help is doing something even if there's no benefit to you. So how can you help them? Maybe you just tell them, hey, like, here's a podcast I think you could get on. Or, hey, maybe this thing could help you. But also, here's the thing. The reason why people don't do it is because I would say about 70% of people are not going to respond. And they're like, this doesn't work. This is not going to work. But when you do it like Rich is talking about and you say, hey, dude, happy birthday. Hey, I just saw you got married. Congratulations. Where's the honeymoon? Oh, man, I saw you had a baby girl. She looks so cute. What's her name? Now people are going to engage in a conversation. So what I'm saying is get people to talk about themselves and then they'll talk with you. Like, it's the most miraculous thing. Like, when you just stop focusing on what can I get and focus on something about them, it's like the heavens open or something. It's incredible. It's simple. I wish I could make it more complex, but remember, Rich, what I said earlier, just be a human. Like, you wouldn't go up to a girl and be like, you want to buy my stuff? You'd be like, no, like, hey, you look so pretty today. I hope you're doing well. Right? Like, you look really great. Has anyone told you that today? It's the same thing as saying, hey, I saw you had kids. What's their names? Be a human. Stop overcomplicating the process. Stop thinking you need another course. Stop thinking you need another video. Stop thinking you need another book. In reality, it's all saying the same stuff. But what we continue to do is we just continue to replay information in hopes that it inspires us to do something new. But what we fail to realize is that nothing on the outside can inspire us as much as stuff on the inside can inspire us. So what we need to start to do is thinking about, okay, like, the way that I think sometimes, Rich, is what is the alternative if I don't do this? Well, I'm going to have to work for somebody else, and I damn well don't want to do that. And a lot of the time that will propel me into sending a birthday message, responding to a comment, doing all these different things. People rely on motivation, but what happens when motivation is no longer there? And I know even sometimes myself, I don't feel motivated. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to get up. I don't want to send the message. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to do this. Sometimes I'll be real. Sometimes I let it win. I do. But what I try to remind myself is, okay, what is the alternative of this? What will happen if I do not do this? So that's what I'll say to that, Rich. Don't overcomplicate it, people. Be a person. Talk like you would talk to a friend. Talk like you would walk up to a boy or a girl and just be friends with them. That's it. Simple.
All right. So, let's, 'cause I'm very respectful of your time, but I'm enjoying our conversation.
I love this. Come on, let's go.
Steve Sims is a great friend of mine. I just had his son on last week, and we were talking about how with AI, everybody is doing the AI and people are starting to become antisocial on social media. Where I do, I learned from Steve that, as soon as me and you hang up, I'm going to go handwrite a thank you card.
Yeah.
And send it to your house from me. It's not one of those hand to let just to let you know, hey, bro, I appreciate you. And a lot of people, when they get them cards, they hang them up on the refrigerator. They show them on social media, because who gets a card anymore? Nevertheless, a thank you card. So, I think people, if you want to be successful, sometimes you got to do things other people. And the way I learned that is because I was on my friend Eric Allen's show. He sent me something beautiful. I was my friend Dennis Yu. I had him on the show. He actually sent me socks with my picture on it. So every time I open my sock drawer, I'm thinking of Dennis Yu. So, sometimes, if everybody else is zigging, we zag. I want you to talk about that. But then I also want you to talk about, I see a lot of podcasts that have all these downloads, and I go into iTunes or Spotify, 3 ratings, 3 written reviews. Like, I think we're at something like 580 5-star written reviews. And I also have people, I save, like when I had Mr. Dean, when he actually sent me a message, hey, bro, loved your show. A lot of people don't create social proof. They don't create, like when Dean sends you, hey, great show, or Mr. Meltzer says, hey, you got to listen to this show. A lot of people don't create social proof, or they don't even get their podcast rated. I mean, ranked or written reviews. That's going to kick them up in the algorithm. So talk about that a little bit. And it's free. It doesn't cost you a penny.
Yeah, Richard, the reality of the situation is people think they're Kim Kardashian. They start a podcast and they're like, everybody's going to listen to it. When I started a podcast, nobody listened to it for the first 3 years. The first 3 years. And then I woke up one day and here's what I said. Why don't I get some reviews and ratings for my show? And this is literally what I did. I went to people's inbox and I said, hello, I'm Deven. I have a podcast, looking to grow podcast. Think you will like podcast. Please listen to podcast, and will you leave me a review? 50% of people said yes. And in 1 month got 200 ratings, right? Just by asking for the rating and the review. Simple. But most people won't do that. Why? Because they think it's more complicated than that. So social proof is everything. The way that we make a determination of which restaurant is the best, we go on Google and we look at which has the most reviews. We look at the pictures. We look at if one club has a line down the block, the other club doesn't have a line. You're going to think that the club with a line down the block is better than the club with no line. Why? Because there's one where people are waiting to get in, the other where there's nobody even in the place. So our reality is shaped by what we see other people enjoying, what we see other people doing. But not only that, our reality is shaped by the perception of how we will fit into these things based upon like the number or the social proof that's required. For example, if I get on Richard's podcast, immediately what I'm going to think is now my status is elevated. Versus if I just went on a beginner's podcast, it's just like, I just went on another podcast. So people want to be put in scenarios where they're working with people that will elevate their status. Here's a point. Here's an example. When I started working with Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Tanner Chittister, Noah Kagan, Derek Fay, all very big names in the entrepreneurship space, I worked for them for free. Why? Because I knew it was a massive opportunity. A massive opportunity. But the problem is that most people miss an opportunity because there isn't a paycheck attached to it. I didn't have to be paid to do work for them because I knew that standing next to them and taking a picture will do more for me in my business than a paycheck ever would. But most people won't do that because they want money now. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, delayed gratification, and people just want stuff now. Social proof, you can get it quick, but you also have to delay probably some money. You probably have to delay some immediate stuff. For example, if you want to get some testimonials, some feedback, some whatever, go to 5 people and say, hey, I want to help you out for free in exchange for a testimonial. You down? Of course, they're going to say yes. But most people won't do it. Why? Because it's hard. Because there isn't an immediate reward and people can't delay the gratification that's involved in the process. But when you understand that not all opportunities come with a paycheck attached to it, that's when my life changed. I just sent a DM to one of my mentors, Nehemiah Davis. You got to have him on your show. Great guy. Very big.
And you got to hook it up.
Yeah. He's for real, man. You would love him. And I heard him 2 years ago say that quote. He said, never miss an opportunity just because a paycheck isn't attached to it. And that just stuck in my head. And then whenever these opportunities came about to get Brian Tracy on the #1 marketing podcast and Entrepreneurs on Fire for the 3rd time, when it came to get Tanner Chittister on these 15 different podcasts in 30 days, I said, this is an opportunity for me. I'm going to help this person and I'm going to do my very best and treat them as if they are paying me. But I know that there is an opportunity in this. But it was free. Most people won't do it because why? They want money now. Just going back to what we were talking about, how do you create leverage in your life? Leverage isn't created by doing something today and seeing the result tomorrow. Leverage is created by doing something today and seeing results in the future. So that's really what I would say to that, Richard.
All right. So the last couple questions I have is, this is a teaching podcast. And like I said, Craig is listening. So, and I think you're a young version of Craig because you're about to get out of the military.
Yeah.
So if you would go back 5 years, if you were to talk to Craig or Private Joe Snuffy, just about to get out of the military on November 29th, 2023, what would your top 3 pieces of advice, if they want to go and get out into the corporate world or start their own podcast or guest their own podcast, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice for a brother in arms if he came to sit and says, bro, what can I do to become successful?
Yeah, the first thing is start now, right? Because what most people do in reality in the military, and I've seen this like in my platoons and stuff, is that they wait until the very last minute in order to try to develop a plan. So you got to start to think right now. If you know you're getting out in 12 months, start to think right now, okay, what is possible for me to do? You got to take advantage of all of the programs that the military has to set you up for success. There's the career skills program. There's all of these different programs in which you can go intern with a company where you can go learn all of these different skills, but you have to start now until it's too late. So don't put off something till tomorrow, that which can be done today. Do it now. So that's the very first thing. Act with a sense of urgency, because guess what? I know October 1st, 2024 is coming right around the corner. I do not have time to wait. That's kind of like a simple thing. Just start it now. But number 2, if you want to go into corporate, like, here's the thing. If you want to get into corporate, like, do the whole resume thing, start to connect with people on LinkedIn. There's a really good website called Veterati, veterati.com. Yep. Veterati, veterati.com. And what that allows you to do is, for people in the military, you can get a bunch of mentors who are in that specific industry, in that specific space, for completely free of charge. So if you want to go into corporate, don't you think it would be wise to get a mentor who was already in corporate? So just go to veterati.com, especially if you're in the military right now, and go ahead and go get a mentor. Why do I say that? Because in reality, number 1, you make a decision like, I'm going to start today. Number 2, you start to align yourself with mentors. And then number 3, you start to develop the skills that are required to be successful in that area. So if I know that I want to leave and I want to be a car salesman, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to wait until I get out to start learning how to sell. What I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start taking courses on Udemy. I'm going to start reaching out to mentors. I'm going to start doing all of these different things. And I'm going to start to develop these skills. Because in reality, the great thing about the military is it's very hard to become unemployed, because it's a very secure job. Unless you get a DUI, you do drugs, you do something crazy, then you'll get kicked out. But it's not like that in the civilian world. It's not like that.
I got back in, but I did it.
There you go. But it's not like that in the civilian world. You get fired like this, they can just dispose of you just because you don't put up numbers or whatever the case may be. So what people need to ask themselves is, how can I become indispensable? And the way that you become indispensable is by acquiring skills that other people do not have. So if I were to recommend and do my whole journey back over again, I would have started learning how to sell at a much earlier age, because your ability to influence and move people is transferable to any industry that you're in. So number one, get started today and don't wait until 6 months from now to try to develop a plan when you're about to just get out. That does not work. And what I've seen with those people, I actually had an instance of this. Someone in my platoon, he said, yeah, I'm getting out. I'm like, all right, man, what's the plan? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Got out of the military. 2 weeks later, came back into the military because he had no plan, nothing to step into, because he waited till the last minute. So number one, make the decision that you're going to start today. Number two, get a mentor. You can go to veteran.com. There's a bunch of different websites out there that will enable you, being in the military, to get a mentor free of charge. And number three, start to take courses and coaching and invest any excess money you have in learning the skills. If you're going into entrepreneurship, marketing and sales. That's it. Those three things, in my opinion, that is the advice that I would give it to Private Joe Snuffy, who's about to get out.
I love it. And also, guys, if you don't know, if you're a veteran, LinkedIn will give you a free paid membership just
like for a year.
Being a veteran, and you can have all those courses. And I've been there for 5 years, and they've never asked me to stop with my courses. So I've been taking five courses for years.
Are you serious?
Like being a veteran. Yeah, they never ask you to. They never cut it off. So I think
they cut me off.
Well, I guess I'm special. But also, there's people out there like Dean Bunchu from Bunker Labs. Amazing. If you want to be a veteran, if you want to go on Facebook, there's a group I'm part of called Veteran Tribe, 16,000 strong veterans. So there's help out there, but you got to go seek the work. So, brother, I just want to say thank you. I'm so humbled for your friendship, and thank you for what you've already done for me just in the last week. You've sent me like 3 killer interviews, and now they're my friends. So I just want to say thank you. And you never asked for anything for me. And that's why I just want to keep on doing for you, because you never asked me for anything. So I just want to publicly say thank you, and thank you, Tanner. Awesome interview, by the way. One of the best interviews I've ever had. Guys, make sure you check out that interview. So, brother, I just want to say thank you.
Dude, thank you. This is an incredible experience. And man, you asked some really awesome questions. This was one of the most fun podcasts that I've ever done. And I've done a lot of them. So, man, now I understand, being here on the other side of the screen, why your show is so successful. It's because of your ability to really guide and facilitate a conversation. It's something special, man.
So then how do we find you? How do we support you? How, if we want to start getting on podcasts or start getting guests from you, how do we get in touch with you to support your mission?
Sure. So I'm really starting to break into LinkedIn now. So what I want everybody that's listening, I want to do something very special for all of you. Now, typically, this is something that I only give away to people that pay me tens of thousands of dollars. And you can't find this anywhere on the internet, even if you looked. So typically what I do, Richard, is I give people what I call my podcast pitch secrets, but I only give them one half of it. If you were to go to podcastpitchsecrets.com and download it, you're only getting half. But what I want to do for your audience, since they've been here for 1 hour and 8 minutes, is I want to give them not just half of my system. I want to give them my entire podcast pitch secrets system so that they can go start getting on other people's podcasts for free. And all that they have to do in order to do that, I want you to send me a message on LinkedIn. My name is Deven, Deven, Deven Rodriguez. And all I want you to do is send me the word momentum. So once again, if you want access to my complete podcast pitch secrets program, all you have to do is go to LinkedIn, go to Deven Rodriguez, send me over a connection request with the message just saying momentum, and I'll know you came from Rich's show, and I'll be able to grant you full access to my podcast pitch secrets course.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think we have almost 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. And we're actually putting a course together or a seminar. We're going to have Joshua B. Lee. We're going to have his wife, and then we're going to have Jordan Mendoza come on. And I would love to have you be part of that.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
All right, Deven. Thank you, brother. Guys, make sure you check out his Facebook profile. I mean, he's always dropping golden nuggets. I love it. I'm watching every episode. I'm watching everything he's doing. Make sure you check out Tanner. Check out our episode. And guys, like I say, vertical momentum. The only way to go is but up. And this episode is going to drop next week. So make sure you go to verticalmomentumpodcast.com and you'll find this episode. And this episode is going to be on 24 different social media platforms. So make sure, I don't care if you read, if you watch videos, it's going to be everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Tumblr, Flickr. It's going to be everywhere. So make sure that you go to that. It's all going to be in one website. Check our website out. Brother, thank you so much. And thank you for your friendship.
Love it, man. Pleasure being here. Peace out, guys.
All right. Keep crushing it, brother. Love you.
Hey, I appreciate it, Rich. Thank you, man. Please let me know when it comes out. If there's anything that I can, I want to help you promote it. This was a great interview, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you for the time, man. This was awesome.
I love you, brother.
Oh, man, I love you too, man. Thanks for everything. And thank you for continuing to work with me with guests. It makes a big difference for me and what I do. So thank you for just being a great friend and someone that I could always rely on.
And it's only the beginning.
Let's do it, man. I'll see you later.